Hello and welcome to Spookies, where we go boots on the ground looking for really cool, lesser known or hidden history. I'm Stephen and today I'm hunting for history near Auchinleck in the southwest side of Scotland. This is actually the second video from this visit, as what you're about to see took part right after my visit to Boswell's summer cave, seen in our last video. I might be biased, but it's defo worth checking that out if you like this one. Anyway, today we'll be looking at a cave known as Wallace's Cave, in reference to the legendary William Wallace. Like a few other caves in Scotland I believe. And it isn't too far from where I'm standing right now, only taking me about 25 minutes to walk there. What you're seeing now is the start of that walk, and will look familiar if you have seen that last video. Here's some of the things I saw on my way to Wallace's Cave, including a wee peek at Boswell's summer house.
That's a beast. Get going.
If you liked that, you can get a better look at the cave and the ice house in our last video, link in description. Anyway, as I got closer to Wallace's cave, I was lucky enough to spot a deer away in the distance. There you go. Hard to spot, but it's a wee bit wildlife nonetheless. It wouldn't be a Spookies video without a wee bit wildlife now, would it? Anyway, I knew I wasn't too far away now, so I was keen to keep up the pace.
Hoping this is it.
We're getting quite close to the cave now, but I couldn't resist jumping in to point out this amazing tree here, which despite falling over, has continued to reach for the sky to survive. So it appears. How incredible is that?
There we go. This is...
So there it is, Wallace's Cave. Amazing. I've wanted to visit here for some time, so I was grateful to finally be here, and I must say, it actually seemed more impressive in person than I had imagined. It's not certain why it's called Wallace's Cave, but it's mostly been put down to the first laird of Auchinleck on record, Nicole de Auchinleck, who is said to have been related to legendary Scottish hero William Wallace, and to have been a supporter of his mission for Scottish independence. In fact, there's even claims that he accompanied Wallace to Glasgow to rout the English. It's been suggested that the name of this cave is to commemorate this association of William Wallace and the Laird of Auchinleck and his family. And just to point out, Auchinleck is the name of this general area, and interestingly, it's said to mean Field of the Stone. It's here where the Boswell estate is, featuring this cave, Boswell's Summer Cave, or Summer House, and Auchinleck House, amongst other things. The latter two on that list are said to be the result of the 8th Laird of Auchinleck, Alexander Boswell, but this cave doesn't appear to have as much of an agreed official origin. Wikipedia lists the cave as an 18th century grotto, with Historic Environment Scotland narrowing that down to circa 1760. However, there doesn't seem to be anything clear about who actually got it made, or why. Was this really made in the 1700s, or could it be earlier than that? I think it's time to stop yapping and get a closer look.
Does anyone trust us? Thank you to have a pictish rope here, because it does make a bit of a difference, eh? Look at that.
That's right, one of the first things I noticed over here were these lines in the stone, making it appear like separate blocks or sections. Like the door at Boswell's Summer Cave, these lines carried on through the cuts, so either they were there before the apparent cuts, or they were part of the creation process, or maybe both. Now, these could just be cracks of course, fractures in the rock caused over time, but I'm not sure. Indeed, I really do think that this could be some sort of formed stone at times, like the geopolymer Paul Cook's Hidden History speaks of. For example, there's points where it looks like they've joined together, perhaps when they were still soft, but the separation line is still clearly visible and clearly there. I can't help but see these as different sections, and as you can see here, they carry on straight through to the other side, making them look like massive blocks or something. Keep an eye on that as we look about, as there's some really good examples coming up. Anyway, I bet you're dying to see what the inside of this place looks like, and I've kept you waiting long enough, so let's take a look around. Hello!
See the difference? They look like blocks, just like in... Look at that. Oh, watch this. come down from there? The line is so thin, but it goes right. It keeps going. And that goes all the way. You can see it. Where the dark line is. It's the same line, running at an angle. Another below it. It's the same line. Continuing. I wonder.
Sorry, getting distracted by those lines again, but how impressive is this place, right? Imagine the work needed to create it, whether it's carved out of the stone or formed some other way. And you know, I really can't help but think that it has been formed some other way. Now I'm no archaeologist or geologist or anything like that, I'm just a guy, but there's just so much going on here, it really makes me think there's more to it. If we take a look back at that last shot, where we followed the black line around the room leading to the window, when we arrive at the window, you can clearly see these lines right across from each other. As well as that though, there's more directly above. Now these lines are incredibly thin at points, and it reminds me, you know, people talk about the thin join marks in ancient Egypt and places like that, and I never thought I'd get to see anything like that in person, but this place really made me think otherwise. If you look carefully here, you can actually make out one of these lines, and look how thin it is. Amazing. Now yeah, these could be natural cracks, but it looks very unlikely, don't you think? Considering how straight and symmetrical they are at times. I find it very unlikely anyway. What do you think? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Cheers. Isn't that interesting? I think it's important to note the similarities with the lines back at the entrance to Boswell's summer cave nearby, as seen in our last video. Could these be signs that both the caves were constructed to some degree and not just carved? And I know that might sound wild to some, but I like to think of it like how we construct things out of concrete these days. To better explain, I drive past this building every time I head to work, and I always think of it like a modern example. Imagine if we were wiped out by some cataclysm, but most of this concrete wall got lucky. A lot of things around it got wiped away, but this managed to scrape by, albeit with some wear and tear. Then years and years and years go by, nature reclaims the land, and now this just looks like a natural rock formation poking out the ground, except these strange lines here. Maybe I'm simplifying it, and this wall may not be the best example, but I'm sure you get what I mean. I can't help but think this when I look at many modern structures, and I bet many of you are the same. And it's because of that, I then can't help but compare these structures to places we visited before, which I thought had potential at being remains of ancient structures, or civilizations. And now we can add this cave to that list. This goes for a lot of the standing stones too, which I think could be remains of some ancient structures as well, still standing, as they were the largest and most difficult to salvage and reuse. What do you think? Please do share your thoughts. While I'm yapping away, I also wanted to mention how much visiting Auchinleck reminded me of Roslyn Glen, particularly the side that me and my dad visited in the Roslyn 2 video. Just like Auchinleck, there are high sandstone cliffs running alongside a river, with Roslyn Glen particularly featuring some interesting rock carvings. There are also multiple caves however, one similarly with stone steps leading down to it, which coincidentally is also known as Wallace's Cave. I find that interesting. One of the things I always remember about that cave in Roslyn were the scratch marks. There's another thing it has in common with this place. Here, these scratch marks cover the interior. They've been described as the mason's chisel marks, left over from the creation process, but I'm not sure. If they could make Boswell's summer cave so smooth, even including a cornice running round the ceiling, then why is this left so rough? Well, I think it's entirely possible that this was once smooth, and like I've seen Paul Cook suggest about locations he's visited, these could be from some sort of chisel marks or something, but not from carving out this cave. Instead, could they be from destroying or defacing the cave? Perhaps there was an alternative religious art on the wall, or carvings. Or maybe they're the scratch marks left over for a rendering coat, or something like that. We'll never know I suppose, but I do think that's just as reasonable an explanation for their appearance. What do you think? Please do share your thoughts in the comments. Cheers! Back again, because I also wanted to note these crossed arches on the ceiling. These have been likened to a saltire, like the Scottish saltire. When I saw them, they reminded me a little of the vaulted ceilings we saw in Dunfermline. But these of course were entirely different. Certainly, these are rugged, thick, robust pillars, seemingly carved from the sandstone. There is one part that stood out to me though, this part here. I thought it looked different from the rest. It seemed to be a slightly different colour and appeared to be lower than the other parts. Imagining for a moment that this was made of some sort of concrete-like stone, a geopolymer, then one could maybe see this as some sort of later addition or repair. The last time I thought this about something, it was on top of the legendary dwarfy stain, which you can also see on the channel, and that turned out to look like that because it had gotten what they called a repair, consisting of concrete. So I wonder if there's been anything like that going on here. Or perhaps it just looks like this from the pieces around it falling away over time. Whatever is going on, these arches are another interesting addition to this place, and I wonder why the extra effort was put in to create them. Sadly, our time at Wallace's Cave is almost up, but don't go anywhere just yet, as I've got a wee Spookies treat coming up. For now though, here's some final photos from inside the cave, before I get heading back. Amazing, isn't it? Could this be an ancient structure of some sort? Or was this carved out the sandstone cliff sometime in the 1700s? Please do share your thoughts in the comments. Cheers! Well, this is our final goodbye to Wallace's cave. Maybe I'll be back again some other day. I actually learned of a few more interesting places nearby while I was here, so I'll definitely be back in the area again sometime. Right, time to go. Goodbye cave. On the way back up, I got a better look at those steps from earlier, and I couldn't help but notice another interesting line in the stone to the left there. Amazing steps though. I wonder when they were made and what it looked like back when they were. Speaking of steps, that brings us to today's Spookies treat. That's right, I also got a look at some more interesting carved steps in the same area of Scotland. To get there, I enjoyed a walk alongside the River Ayr, which is connected to the River Lugar that we saw Wallace's cave next to earlier. On the way, I saw a wee bit more wildlife before eventually getting to where I was going. This place is known as Peden's Cove, and is basically a series of steps carved into the red sandstone cliff. The information board we just passed explains these are believed to date from the 17th century. It says that they get their name as they're thought to have been cut out to enable Alexander Peden, a famous Covenanter, to preach to his congregation on the other side of the river. This dude seems to have had quite the interesting life, involving wearing a cloth mask and wig and evading capture for many years. What you're seeing now is his actual real cloth mask and wig, on display at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. Looking pretty spooky today if you ask me. I love it. Anyway, why was he evading capture though? What was his crime, I hear you ask? Well, in 1662, Charles II declared himself head of the Scottish Church. This meant that ministers had to comply with the changes or stop preaching altogether. Opting for neither, indeed outright opposing the religious changes, Peden and many more ministers left the church and began preaching illegally across the land. When he was eventually captured in 1673, he was sentenced to imprisonment on the Bass Rock, where he stayed for 4 years or so. Jeez oh, could you imagine that? And with Scotland's weather too. After being moved to Edinburgh for a while, he was to be sent to America to work on the Virginia plantations. This never happened though, as apparently the American captain refused to take him and others aboard after learning that they were being exiled for religious opinions. After this, Peden is said to have spent the rest of his days back in Scotland. Unfortunately, because their delicate state, it's asked that people stay off the steps, so I wasn't able to go up and have a look. It was great to see them though, and they're clearly very old and weathered. I think they probably are from Peden's time, but I do question whether there's truth behind the official story, wondering if it was actually possible for anyone to hear him on the other side of that river. It seemed quite big to me. I personally found the cliff just as interesting, as I wondered about the perfectly straight lines you can see in it. Some of these lines seemed so regularly placed, running right along to the steps and beyond. It's very intriguing. And then there's this strange bit, which I've seen near identical examples of elsewhere. Were these from removing the stone? Are they natural cracks in the rock or something else? Parts of it reminded me of back at Wallace's cave, and I couldn't help myself from wondering. Regardless of when this place is from, it's another interesting feature that adds to the mystique of this area, and I'll definitely be back someday to go hunting for more history. If you'd like to join me, why not subscribe? We've got a few adventures to check out on the channel now, and I'm always working on something new in my spare time, so there's always something new in the pipeline at some point. Thanks to all those who've stuck with us, and a big welcome to everyone new. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a wee like, and share any of your thoughts in the comments. It's much appreciated. Cheers. Hopefully, you'll see me in the next one. Cheerio.